Hey guys, Stephen Bogren here, Pro Physique. Today, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows, fam. So hey guys, this will be a very different video, I think. Maybe I always think it's a different video and it's really not. But I wanted to kind of share a little bit with you guys today about, what's going on in my life, how I kind of deal with that, and some personal experiences, and kind of how I manage to cope and deal and, talk about some of the difficult things that life can often present to us, right? So if like this would be a podcast, I would call it the depressing podcast. And so I just think it's important because one, it gives us a little bit of perspective. If I can get perspective on what's going on in other people's lives, sometimes my life just doesn't feel so bad. Maybe I feel a little bit luckier. Maybe I feel, maybe I don't need to complain. Maybe I can get through this. If they can do that, I can do this, right? But if we never share our experiences, if we never share the tough things that we're going through, it never gets better. Not for other people. We don't give them that example of, hey, you can definitely make it through this. You have the strength. You have the emotional willpower. And so before I get into anything, it's just not like, hey, you feel bad for me. This is, hey, guys, like if I can do this, I'm nobody special. So if I can get through this and manage it and make it through my days semi-decently, you most certainly can, because I assume that most people out there have a little bit more emotional maturity than myself. So, I think a lot of times we get really caught up in the small stuff. And so one of the things that happened to me recently was I went out, I went to go get some groceries and stuff, went to Target, came back out, smash, car, bam, like through the rear bumper, like rocked the back hatch door, some other stuff. For those of you who know me, I'm very particular about my vehicles, like my motorcycle, my car. And so for me, I'm like, well, that's a pretty big deal. But a lot of other people are like, oh man, I'd be so mad, I'd be so upset. For me, well, one, I had just worked out also, so that always helps, right? We have a little bit of feeling good stuff, vibes going through our veins. So that always helps to calm you down and let you go. But I really thought about it. I was like, this problem can be solved by money. Like, if money is what can solve a problem, it's not the worst problem in the world to have. And so what gave me this perspective and helped me to sort of realize this is, there's been some deaths recently. And I want to talk about the first one that, probably affected me a little bit. My friend's father passed away. And so for those of you who are checking in today, you got that auto response. Hey, I'm at a funeral, expect a little bit longer response times today. And so I wasn't super close with him. I don't want you guys to be like, he was my best friend, because I think that does disservice to our relationship. He was a super wonderful, nice guy. He would come in, he would watch his son and grandson roll and practice martial arts. And it was just very obvious that he loved his family very, very much. I visited with him at the hospital a few weeks ago. He had an infection in his foot. They did some surgery and he never recovered from the surgery. So if you saw my Instagram post, that is this gentleman. And I just remember talking to him at the hospital when I visited him. And it was just like the simple things that he wanted to do with his family. I want to go fishing with my kids. I want to get the gun range on our property set up. I want to spend time with my family. And that was the reoccurring theme, is he just loved his family. And so that kind of hit me, because when I found out he passed, I was like, fuck. I was literally just talking to him about all the things he still wants to do with his life, all the things he still wants to accomplish. And so for me, a lot of things have been put into perspective by that this week. That, most of my shit, like, I still have today to do things. I still have the opportunity to fix things. I still have the opportunity to try and make things better and progress in my life. And that makes me a very lucky man. And so, yes, financial issues and financial stressors can definitely be a big deal. But, if it's extra stuff, if it's not food on the table, roof over our head, it's probably not the biggest ordeal as long as our needs are met. And so this is one of those things where I was like, thankfully I've worked hard and I've been put into a position where my needs are met and there is still a little bit of extra. I'm kind of fucking cheap anyways. So having to spend a little bit of money to pay my deductible to get my car fixed wasn't a big deal. Because I had that perspective there, right? And so I guess my first point is this. Try and be objective with yourself. Try and take yourself out of just your own life even. Because in my own life I'm limited in my perception and my understandings. Because I've only had so many experiences. I've only been through so many things. And that's different for everybody, right? Like for the person who's had a very sheltered life, who's been protected and financially stable and supported throughout their entire lives, what they find to be big deals, I'm gonna be like, fuck, are you kidding me? But it's a big deal for them, right? Perspective determines everything. So sometimes what we need to do to really kind of handle those life stressors is drop out from our own perspective, take a bigger worldview perspective and really look at it in the big scheme of things. And that can be a really big thing to help us to get through those things, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still have feelings about a situation, and obviously material things are probably not a big deal in general. Obviously there are so many more important things like health, life, happiness, family, and those things are really the big ones, right? But we can definitely get caught up on the small things, right? So sometimes when we're doing that and we find that that's happening, it can be beneficial for us to take a step back and really look at the big scheme of things, right? Now, the other thing that I want to get into, for those of you who don't know me and my family history, is that my father committed suicide when I was about 8. And so that was definitely something that has made a big impression upon me and my family. And so the next thing I think that I want to talk about is making sure that you're dealing with stuff, that you're not just letting it go. And so one of my mother's friends committed suicide this week. She called me very upset. And again, I don't think it was anybody that she was very close with. And so, yes, it definitely makes sense to be upset. Yes, it definitely makes sense to have feelings and say, man, this is tough. Like, that was a good person. They had a life. They had a family. They had these people that care about them. And I think that it makes sense for us to hurt, to feel their pain, to try and put ourselves in their shoes, and that's a very human thing to do. But I think for my mother, it definitely brought up a lot of stuff from my father as well. And she may not have gotten the same opportunity to have dealt with those feelings in those situations because she was busy raising 2 kids by herself now. And we weren't fucking great kids. But at some point we have to revisit those things. We have to revisit those hard times, those difficult things that we've been through that have made us feel low and alone and scared and hurt and hopeless. Because if we don't revisit them, we can't ever deal with them. Unless we manage to deal with them initially, right? But what I found in my life is when I have those hard situations, those difficult things happening up, it's never a one and done kind of thing. I have to deal with it. And then something's going to come up and it's going to remind me and it's going to bring those feelings back up and I have to deal with it again. It's a reoccurring thing. And so over time, maybe those feelings get less strong. Maybe it's a little bit more blurry, but I still have to be very aware and cognizant of the fact that some of my actions, some of my perspectives, some of my reactions are based off of things that happened in the past, right? And if I want to have healthy relationships, if I want to have a full life for myself, I have to deal with those things as well. I cannot just let them lie and expect them to go away. I can't brush them under the rug and expect that will make everything better. No, I still hold those scars. I hold that weight. That is all still there affecting me, right? And so this was definitely a big deal, like for my mother this week. It was something that I noticed and something that my brother noticed as well after I talked to him a little bit. And it's tough because now you have not only this hurt, this pain of the situation itself, but you also have it being magnified by our past pains, our past turmoils, our past experiences that have put us through that. So I know a lot of you guys are going through things right now. I hear from you guys, you're open, you're honest with me. I know that there's a lot of tough shit going on in your lives. And so for my clients who are watching this, and for anyone else who's watching this, I want to encourage you. The entire point is hopefully this helps you to help get through what you're getting through, because you are more than strong enough, you are more than able, and there will always be there's always a tomorrow, right? Whether we're here for it or not, it's there. And so we want to do our best to continue living for today and tomorrow and the next day. So guys, if you find that something's really weighing on your heart, try and take some objective stances on your perspective. Maybe it is really truly a big deal. And if it is really truly a big deal, I encourage you, find help. Talk to your loved ones. Talk to a therapist if you need to. Do the right things to make sure that you're working through these difficult times and the difficult traumas and situations that happen in life. We all go through them. So, make sure you lean on the people around you. Make sure you let them know when you need help, when you're struggling, when it feels like the weight of the world is crushing down upon you, right? Utilize things like the gym and physical activity and exercise to help you to get through these things, right? Utilize healthy coping mechanisms to help you to get through those problems. So that way, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, we can see, is this problem a problem worth having? And hopefully, if it's not a problem that's really worth having, we can let it go right there. We can kind of deal with it to the best of our ability and say, hey, cool, it's the end of it. And if it's one of those things that really is a big deal, and it's one of those things that's going to have to take some time and some effort and some healing, that we're doing the right things to have that healing come, and we're putting in that time and effort to do it. So, guys, that's it. Definitely a little bit more depressing of a topic today. I'll try and get back on it tomorrow with happy feel-good stuff. But either way, I hope it helped.